When you went to OVW and when you finally started appearing on TV as a commentator, it was the first time wrestling fans ever saw a serious Jim Cornette.
Yes.
You toned down the colors.
Yeah.
You weren't being funny so much every now and then.
I'd slip in the phrases, you know, but not just boom, boom, boom like I'm doing stand-up.
And it was you and Dean Hill. And it was one of the few times we had a break from the heel announcer or the wrestling commentator who was a former wrestler who's trying something different. Right. What was your thought process going into the OVW commentating? I mean, putting yourself there is very similar to Bill Watts being there, and Dean Hill's very much like Boyd Pierce sometimes, where he gets as much in.
Yeah.
But what were your thoughts on doing that and not having a heel commentator?
Well, Dean was there specifically because the people loved him, and he was a local fixture around wrestling. When he was a Louisville police officer, he was a security guard at the Tuesday night matches at the Gardens for years and years. Then he became the ring announcer there. Then when he retired from the police department was about the time that Danny Davis was starting OVW, and about the time also that the Memphis territory was, you know, folding up and pulling out of Louisville. So Danny had known Dean forever, and Danny asked Dean to come and do his program. Dean's not even his first career nor his second career was a television broadcaster. And Dean was, and I think would admit this, was not your typical smooth television broadcaster, but he had a good voice. He plays in a band. He's musical. He's just a great guy. And the fans here in Louisville liked him and trusted him and knew he wasn't full of shit and he wasn't going to lie to them and tell them a bunch of caca. So you want that in your announcer. So he could be Boyd Pierce because the people loved Boyd Pierce. Dean did not have to call the matches. I did. He didn't have to fucking referee the fights amongst the talent. I did. But he was there to not only let me breathe and do the fills and do some ring announcing, but also because it was a local flavor to the program of a guy that everybody that was watching or everybody that came to our live events had been seeing and it liked in person for 20 years. There was also, I didn't want a heel announcer because every other wrestling program in the country had a heel announcer. And what I was trying to do was the only serious pro wrestling television program on the air in the United States at that time. And I succeeded. And I was the announcer. I didn't have the wild colors on. I wasn't being a heel. I wasn't being an asshole because I was the local native Louisvillian that had gone out and had a spectacular wrestling career on national TV and blah, blah, blah. And now I've come back to be the matchmaker for this local organization that is going to bring you folks the widest variety of talent you've ever seen in Louisville with the up-and-coming tomorrow's superstars today, as well as some of the biggest names in wrestling through my contacts will be brought here. And I am the voice and the face of the promotion as the play-by-play announcer. I'm going to be straight, and I'm going to be honest about it. I'm not going to favor the heels, but I'm not going to, at the same time, do the Ed Whalen thing for the babyface. I'm going to be credible and straight and logical. And I'm an announcer, the lead announcer of a sports program. And that's what it was, a sports program. There was no sports entertainment. It was an entertaining sport. So I wanted announcers that the people believed that were straight men for the wild and wacky talent, but that also could impart all the information the people needed to know and would be trusted. And nobody ever put their hands on Dean Hill, and maybe once every year and a half, one of the heels would go crazy and punch me or body slam me, which would lead to me potentially being in a corner against the manager or whatever the case. And otherwise than that, the announcers played it straight. And that was why that OVW as a television program was different than every other wrestling program on television in the country at that point. And this is before he lost complete control of his faculties, but even with the modern style spot monkey attitude bullshit going on, even Uncle Dave and his minions had to acknowledge that television program was the best booked wrestling television program in the country at the time. I think they were talking about 2003, 2004. It was the only one that made sense. It didn't insult anybody's intelligence. It got the most out of the talent and got people over instead of under, where they were more important after they'd been on the television than they were when you first saw them. So that was the thought process behind. I wasn't doing a wrestling sports entertainment program. I was doing a regional sports television program. Could have been football, baseball, whatever. It just happened to be wrestling.